to search for a motive. With us to explain more now, CNN law enforcement analyst James Galliano. He is a retired FBI supervisory agent for the FBI. So, James, it's pretty morbid to think that this shooting may have been recorded, but I imagine that would be very helpful for investigators.
Absolutely. Again, it could speak to motive. I mean, was this individual that perpetrated this heinous act, was he a member of the congregation? Had he ever been to that church before? They'll go back and they'll cull all the other videotapes that have been posted to try to see if they can find him there. And then, yes, just speaking to the tactical presence that he had or how he conducted the shooting rampage, that's going to be important for law enforcement, along with a whole host of other things. We know that the local police department is working this. In Texas, their state police are the Texas Rangers. They've been around since 1823. Fantastically professional organization. They'll help out and, I'm sure, handle some of the evidence collection as well. And then the FBI. This looks like it is probably going to move into the realm of a case that the FBI will take the lead on. We still have to be careful. We don't know what the motive was. Small church, population in that town of 683 people. We know that this casualty count is going to climb, unfortunately, and as you pointed out, a number of people in critical condition. And I think we really need to take a step back as we are and be very, very careful. This press conference that's upcoming is going to be key to giving us some answers here going forward.
Again, we will bringing that to our viewers live as soon as that begins. But you talk about the FBI and the ATF being on scene. These are federal agencies. But you point out that this is such a small town, and you believe that's the primary reason that these federal investigators are involved, at least on the onset.
Absolutely, because obviously the federal government has plenty more resources, whether it's personnel resources or material resources. So in an instance like this, my understanding, I don't think the FBI has a small satellite office close there because San Antonio is so close and we have a field division there. There's 56 FBI field divisions around the country, and obviously San Antonio would be the quickest. They would launch folks primarily from the investigative standpoint as well as the crime scene folks. On the federal side, we refer to those folks as evidence response team members. And you're probably going to see those folks on scene here with the blue shirts, FBI ERT on the back, collecting shell casings, collecting any other type of forensic evidence that's going to be found inside that church and outside the church.
What are the biggest questions you have right now?
It always goes to motive because, again, as you try to get in front of these things, it's chilling and sobering that October 1st we had Las Vegas and that horrific tragedy, 58 people killed, 500 injured. Last Tuesday, 8 people killed, mowed down on the West Side Highway. And then today, and we know that we're talking about 20 plus, the investigators and the folks are very careful right now about releasing the numbers. But Anna, we know how this happens. We know that that casualty count is going to increase. And in a place with 683 people, they lost 3 to 4% of their population in this one horrific event. We go to houses of worship for peace and sanctity. We don't go there expecting something horrific like this to happen.
So who are investigators talking to right now? What would they be looking at?
Everybody. First of all, the scene of the car. We assume that the perpetrator was in the car when he was either interdicted or took his own life. They are combing that car right now. First of all, they're going to be checking for booby traps because you got to keep the investigators and the police safe. They'll do that. Then they'll be looking for any type of forensic evidence there, any type of manifesto that would speak to motive, a handwritten note, anything that might indicate that there were some co-conspirators. That's critical because the co-conspirators could potentially be planning. And I'm not saying that this is what's happened. We don't know this, but could be planning other attacks. We want to make sure to mitigate that first, make sure that we can come out at a press conference and say to the public, we know that this was a single person, a single evil act, and the public is safe going forward. And then we want to piece together the reasoning behind this. And obviously the human intelligence you get from speaking to the witnesses, the people that were tragically inside that church but that did survive, and then going back and collecting up and harvesting all the digital exhaust. What did he do online? And find out, are there any answers or any keys to explain why this happened?
Right now, we don't have the identity. Officials are not confirming the name or anything about the suspect. Hopefully, that's something we might learn come this press conference as soon as that begins. Again, we will bring that to our viewers, and that could happen at any moment. We'll continue to monitor that for you. But James, what we do know is at least one person was just 14 years old, one of the victims, one of the 20. We know there are multiple people fighting for their lives. Another witness saying she knows 3 children who are in the hospital right now who suffered injuries. Does that tell you anything about the mindset of this person, this attacker?
Again, a house of worship, a church, a synagogue, a mosque, these places are where we go for peace and sanctity, and they are the softest of soft targets. There is no screening process to get in. There are no metal detectors. There are no armed guards there. We don't have that in the United States. This is a country that prides itself on protecting civil liberties and making sure that our citizens enjoy all the freedoms that they want. You can worship where you want. Nobody can tell you where you can worship or that you can't worship. Inside that church, no one would be expecting something like this. And that's what makes this so particularly degenerate and depraved that the shooter picked this particular location to do it.
This shooter came in, opened fire, apparently left the church. There was a brief chase, we've learned, with officials. What does that tell you? The fact that he didn't take his own life inside the church.
Again, every one of these incidents, and again, we talked about how it's far too often that we're meeting to talk about these things. Yeah. The paradigm has shifted where, you know, we've noticed of recent, I say of recent, in the last 10 years, that the need for negotiation. I'm not saying that negotiators are obsolete or that you don't need to have hostage negotiators, but typically these events happen. People are either looking to kill themselves or martyr themselves or commit suicide by cop or take their own lives. They don't particularly have an escape plan in place. That's not, you know, we talked about this in Vegas. Was the shooter trying to escape? We saw the guy that committed the vehicular homicides on the West Side Highway. Was he trying to escape when he jumped out of the car? Probably not. In this instance, the shooter jumped in his car. He had to know that there'd be a huge dragnet. He had to know that the police were going to be on his heels pretty quickly. Had to know that it was going to end some way, probably horrifically. It's just, it's unfortunate that the shooter was not taken alive. We're glad that he was interdicted and put down, but it's unfortunate because I'm sure there would have been a treasure trove of information that seasoned investigators could have gotten by talking to him about what caused this, what premeditated, you know, activity, what was going on in his mind to cause him to want to do something so horrific.
And maybe there are answers to those questions that we just don't know. We don't know what the evidence is that these investigators may have at this point. James Galliano, thank you so much for staying with us and providing a little bit of an understanding of how this investigation may be unfolding right now. We continue to bring you some images from this town where this happened, Sutherland Springs, Texas. Just hundreds of people who live in this community, not even 1,000 members of this community. People who are in the community tell us that it's the kind of place where everybody knows everybody, and a lot of people are hurting right now tonight. We'll continue to bring you the latest information out of Texas and this mass shooting that happened today. At least 20 people killed and many more injured after a gunman opened fire inside a small church. We'll be right back. You're live in the CNN Newsroom.